All right, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our coffee. And today's going to be another one of those episodes. My name is Chad Lingelfelt with Loc-Doc Security, and today we're going to be sharing a coffee break with Duncan Littlefield, former professional golfer, current professional storyteller.
I like that.
It's going to be a fun conversation. We'll get to that right after this.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Solid.
Does that work?
That's solid. I liked it.
I mean, it's no Littlefield production, but it's what we got.
I will. That's the biggest compliment, so I appreciate that.
All right, welcome to the Coffee Break Podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know you had to rearrange some things to be here today, and I know you normally have a team meeting, but we appreciate you being here.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, we normally have a standing team meeting 7:30 to 9 every Tuesday morning, so we pushed it up a day, and it all worked out.
Awesome. I can appreciate that. We have one on Wednesdays from 7 to 9 or 7 to 8:30. So I understand the importance of that. We'll talk more about that here in just a little while. One of the recurring segments that we have on the podcast is Rapid Fire, which is 5 randomly selected questions to kind of get to know you a little better. So
I'm in.
Here we go. All right, number 1. What is the craziest dare that you've ever taken?
I would have to say that it was my freshman year, first weekend on campus in college. There is a tradition to streak the hollow, which is this big hill right in the middle of campus. And first weekend, you have to do it before you graduate, and I just knocked it out.
Just went ahead and get it out of the way.
Yeah, just get it out of the way.
All right, number 2. If you could only listen to one song for the rest of your life, what song would you pick?
Man, right now I'm a huge fan of Dermot Kennedy, and so I would probably have to say maybe one of his new songs. Yeah, Lost is a great one, but I don't know. I'm a big Dermot Kennedy fan.
Awesome. Number 3. What interesting skill do you want to learn?
That's I would love to learn how to play an instrument.
Okay. Any particular instrument or just an instrument?
I mean, the guitar's cool.
Yeah.
But anything. I wish I was a little more musically talented, inclined, available to keep a rhythm.
Yeah. All right. Number 4. What's the craziest fashion trend that you ever rocked?
Man, I had some long hair back in high school, but it was definitely the flow, not the long hair. So in my freshman year of college, again, my freshman hazing for the team was that I had to grow it out until pictures.
Okay.
And that was we didn't have pictures until November. So I had to let this thing fly. And It was wings going outside the hat.
Oh, there you go. that era. All right. And then the last one, what was your first job and what did you like or dislike about it?
First job was I was a caddy for at Woodway Country Club, and I remember I was super excited about it because it gave me an opportunity to see a side of the game that I never saw before.
Okay.
And to learn just a new feature or a new appreciation for what is out there, not even from a job perspective, but also how I can work somebody around a golf course without being at my own game.
Yeah. I was watching something the other day. I remember what it was. It was a Faraday episode with Carson Daly, and he was talking about how he grew up, and he played golf as well, but he was a caddy at one of the country clubs there. Anyways, that's pretty cool. All right, well, hey, you passed.
Thanks. I mean, I think it was a little more long-winded than quick rapid fire, but
it works.
That's my DNA. So I got what I got.
That's good for the podcast. All right, so cool. I guess a little bit of background, and I kind of referenced it already. You were, and this is a part of it. If you do any type of Google search on your name, it's going to come up. I mean, you're listed on Callaway's website. Tell us a little bit about your background with golf and how that's kind of played into where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the game of golf taught me more about business, connection, people, and life than it ever taught me about the game of golf.
Yeah.
So, to kind of give you the backstory, I fell in love with the game right about age 13, 14. And from there, I was off and running. I was a 3-sport athlete up until that point. And about freshman year of high school, I decided to make the shift to full-time golf.
Okay.
When I only started playing about a year or two before. And very like seriously playing a year or two before. Like I had a club in my hand every once in a while. My dad was an avid golfer.
Sure.
And I remember going to the driving range with him as a kid. But I mean, I played probably 10 times, 12 times a year.
Yeah.
And then it was all of a sudden 10, 12 times in a 2 to 3 week span.
Sure, yeah.
And so said, you know what? I want to go after this. I want to try to play in college and see where it goes. And I wasn't very good in high school. I was still learning the game. I was still trying to understand how body mechanics worked. And wasn't very good, but like honestly, barely made my high school team. And from there, I got recruited to go play Division III and found a great school in Wittenberg University, which was a top 50 program at the time. And I think 2 years after I left, they actually won the national championship, which is pretty cool.
Oh, what?
And so played college golf for a year and a half. And for that fact, I was okay. You know, like I was still getting better, but I wanted more. And at that point, I decided to, take a leave and go after it full time.
So what does that look like, taking a jump into full-time professional golf?
It was interesting. So my freshman year, between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I actually took a job as a camp counselor at Stanford University's golf camp.
Okay.
So I was privileged enough to get a call from Conrad Ray, who was, I don't know how we got connected originally, but he called me. He was like, hey, man, like, would you want to do this? And I said, absolutely. I would love to be a part of this for, 5-6 weeks. I'm from the Bay Area and would love to go see my family, and this all works out. And so when I was there, yes, I was working with kids and I was coaching kids and I was a counselor, but I was also in front of D1 coaches. And during that time, whenever the kids weren't in session, I was able to practice at Stanford's golf course in their practice facility. And so I was talking to them. They're like, what do you want to do? And I explained the process of where I was and where I wanted to go. And then they were like, well, what if we started trying to recruit you? And so it was a very interesting thought, and I was very honored by it. So after my sophomore year of sophomore fall, I went to my coach and I said, hey, I would love to explore the option to transfer. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't have a need, but I want to see what's out there, because right now I'm the only one pushing the team.
Gotcha.
And as a freshman and as a sophomore, like that's hard.
Yeah.
Like you want to be looking up to that senior level guy of going like, I got to go take him down. Like I want to take his record. I want to beat him by the time I leave here. I want to leave my impact here. And you know what? He decided that I wasn't the best fit for the team anymore because I had other opportunities, or I had other options or desires to move on.
Gotcha.
And so, you know what? We decided to say, let's go to Florida and rework it. Went to Florida, hit balls to my hands, bled every single day, learned a lot about it, broke 2 NCAA regulations unknowingly. And then it was like, all right, well, school's over and let's go after it. Yeah. And then I turned pro just before my 21st birthday.
So it's interesting because we sit around and watch, on the weekends, the PGA tournament. We're watching this golf, and it's like, man, it must be nice to make that putt on the 18th and get that $2 million check. Oh. There's a lot of work that goes into that. I mean, you just kind of alluded to it. What kind of hours are you putting in once you get to that level?
I would say it's more work than people think. And again, that says for anything, like an entrepreneur or a business owner.
Yeah.
Like
must be nice, but
yeah, it's more work than people see.
Yeah.
And the work behind closed doors is the real work, and that's the part that's infectious. Like if you're in it for the right reason, and if you trust the process more than you want the end game, Gary Woodland, like he talks about like how yes, like the trophy's nice, but it was the 10 years of experience of getting to the ability to have that ability or have the opportunity to make that putt at the U.S. Open at Pebble. And that's what you take home with it. If you love the process and what you go through to earn it, more than you ever think about the trophy or the $1 million in the bank account or the planes or the whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's what matters.
And that's the part that you can apply to almost anything that's outside of golf. But it's one of the lessons that you can learn, through sports as a general term, but it's that practical application. Let me ask you this question. Did you think you would be at this point in your life right now?
No, I really didn't. And I say that a couple ways. I thought I was going to be on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Like I thought I would have been playing in Pebble. Maybe not at 30, but I thought, the Travelers back in Connecticut, my home state, like definitely be there by 30. And I'm lucky that I'm not. I'm lucky that I failed. And I failed. My goal in the game of golf was to be the number 1 player in the world. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I got to 1,400 or 1,300. And like, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. But I still failed.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that I failed. But to be where I am right now, I tell this to people all the time. I think I'm one of the luckiest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. I was able to go after a sport that I loved and take a risk for a passion. There is so few people that get to do that in this world. I'm the luckiest guy you'll meet. So for the fact that, I have Littlefield Company and I've had a couple businesses failed and I've had another career fail, and I'm blown away that I'm here right now, and I'm very fortunate of that.
And you're lucky for the experiences that you've gone through. I would imagine as we kind of walk through this, there's more of those lessons that you've learned that you're applying to where you're at right now.
It's unbelievable. I remember there's so many times. So my coach, his name's Roger Nick, owns the Golf Performance Center in Connecticut.
Okay.
And there's times where I just call him now, and I'm just like, man, I remember when we were sitting in the coaching bay at like 22 years old, and you were telling me something, and like, yes, it was applicable to golf at the moment. I didn't understand it because I was 22, but now it is so, it just makes so much sense. And like, I kind of like talk to like my team, and I like repeat things that he's told me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just Roger, like I'm Roger to Duncan, like 8 years ago, and this is like, I just got to call him and like kind of joke about it, but it's so true. There's so many things that he taught me. Even my parents, like my parents were the biggest support staff for me, and I'm so fortunate for them every day. But like the things that they told me is like today it's more relevant than ever.
Yeah. All right, so real quick, just because I'm trying to geographically patch you here. You said your hometown was in Connecticut. You've spent time in California and in Florida. Where did North Carolina come into play?
So, and I also went to college in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
So add one more in there. But yes, so North Carolina came into play about 4.5 years ago now. I was playing on a tour that was traveling the East Coast, and my sister moved here 5-6 years ago right out of college.
Okay.
So whenever I missed a cut in that season, I wasn't playing very well. So I came and stayed with her on the weekends. It was free room and board. It was not in a host family. It was not in a hotel. And it was nice to just kind of be around someone I trusted and loved.
Sure.
And so I just fell in love with the city.
Gotcha.
She lived over in South Park, and I practiced at a Ballantyne Country Club or Ballantyne Golf Course.
Yep.
And just fell in love with the city and being around it. And I don't know, like when I kind of looked at my next year, I was like, man, I've never had a home. It was 9 months on the road and 3 months in Orlando, or 4 months in Orlando and then back to another 8 months on the road, wherever my car was. And that was the mini tour. That was the mini tour life. It was not private jets and flying around from tournament to tournament. It was driving across the country.
Yeah.
It was Connecticut to South Dakota, back to Georgia, like all in a couple weeks span.
Yeah.
And so it was really nice to actually feel a sense of home, which I was longing for. And I said, you know what, let's do it. There's a tour now. It's the eGolf Tour. But it was located, technically based out of Charlotte. So I could probably play half the schedule from my apartment. And that was, at 26 years old, that was a nice thought.
Yeah. So you still kind of were dabbling in it a little bit. When did you said you had a couple of other failed businesses, but the Littlefield company as it is right now, when did that get started for you?
I would say it technically launched January 1 of last year. So 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's been 18 months. Before that, it kind of evolved from a company called In the Streets Photography.
Okay.
That was just my project. Like that was Duncan, just sweat equity photography all the time. And from there, it said, all right, you know what? I'm getting a little busier, and I'm seeing the transition into where we want to go.
Okay.
And change the name because I couldn't have photography in it, and had a lot of really great impact on the name, but I never wanted the company to be named after myself.
Yeah, I got you. Well, let's talk a little bit about the photography, because that industry is very intriguing to me, because it is there's some really good professionals out there, and then there's a lot of people.
Sure.
So, what was your interest in that? How did you get involved in photography? Kind of what led you into that?
So the story goes, and kind of the medium length story is that when I was playing golf, I sat back and I wasn't playing great. I wasn't making a ton of money, and I said, you know what? There's everywhere I went, everybody like, what do you do? Like I'd go to like a Ruby Tuesdays, and the waitress would go like, what do you do? And I'm saying I'm a professional golfer, and she'd be like, oh my gosh, how's Tiger Woods? Hey, how's Phil's back? Like, it was me driving around the country.
Yeah.
Like it was not the PGA Tour life. So I kind of decided that no one was telling the mini tour story and doing it right. So I took to social media. and I started to brand myself, and I just wanted to do it for fun, and it was enjoyable. But then it all of a sudden turned into a business. My very first quote unquote client or partner was GoPro.
Okay.
So my social media education, my content education, everything came from GoPro. So, but the one thing I learned now looking back on it is I was actually able to tell a story.
Yeah.
And I was able to tell a story about myself, and people connected with that. So all of that stems from me just taking fun photos and trying something different. So when I got out of the game of golf, I kind of sat back and remember sitting in my apartment and just going like, what skills do I have?
Yeah.
Like, I've chased a little white golf ball around for 8 years now.
Sure.
Like religiously.
How do I turn that into something?
How do I turn it into something? I don't have a college degree. I don't have a background in, marketing or this and that. And then all of a sudden it was like, you know what? I kind of have a background in marketing because I marketed myself. And I kind of have a background in content creation. So because I marketed myself, and that was my version of marketing. So I kind of picked up a camera and I said, you know what? I picked up a camera and I said, you know what? Let me start taking some photos.
Yeah.
And at the time I was working for a company, Lululemon, and I was just working in retail. Like I was working at the South Park store as an educator. And they did a weekly email blast with new content. And I noticed that all of the photos were stock photography.
Gotcha.
So I was like, all right, why not I leverage this and let me see if I can take the photos for the email blast.
Okay.
So my goal every week was one photo. But it was bringing somebody new in, bringing a community member in, putting them in a new piece or new outfit, and then from there taking that photo and hopefully creating more connection.
Gotcha.
And that's how it really took off.
I think I saw an article. It may have been on a Charlotte Agenda article or something like that, and it said Duncan's daily routine or something like that.
Yeah, it was. That was a Hygge blog.
Okay, Hygge.
That was a Hygge blog back. Gosh, Sarah did that. I mean, it probably 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, and it basically your day started at like 6 a.m.
Still does.
And then all the way down to editing photos down to 11 o'clock at night. I would imagine that's changed a little bit, or is it's still similar?
It's changed a lot. The biggest thing now is that I'm a huge believer in sweat equity.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just how I'm raised. Like it's my DNA. Like it's just like what drives me is sweat equity. So for that fact, it was, yes, I was doing everything for myself. But at that time I was working at Lululemon 40 hours a week, 8 hours a shift. And then it was photography everywhere else. Yeah. Now I'm fortunate enough to have a full team that is just running around the city of Charlotte and other cities. And we're creating content for companies that need their story told. So moving into that mindset, because this is something that is very intriguing to me, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to reach out to you and have you on the podcast, because you've done something that from a creative standpoint, you were creating content, and you still are, I'm imagining, creating content, but you've also built a team of creators. I've got a lot of friends that are creators. There is an interesting break between creating and managing or building a team atmosphere. Do you consider yourself more of a creator or more of an entrepreneur? Man, that is a really great question. And I knew I was getting it, which is like the worst part about it. And I still don't have an answer. So, and I think the hardest part for me is I'm the doer. I'm the practitioner. Like I am the guy who's going out and hitting 500 golf balls, and then going to hit 200 putts, and then going to play 18 holes. So when I first started, and even like I failed as a manager, I failed as a boss, I failed as a support, I failed my team because I'd never done it before. Yeah, I remember looking, Ethan and Aaron were the first two guys. Like they were ground floor of the company. And I remember looking at them and going, guys, I'm going to be like brutally honest. I've never done this before. Yeah. I've never had to, I've supported people from like, I've helped them move into an apartment or like been friends or like stuff like that. But I've never like had like people's lives based on whether or not we can make money. Sure. Yeah. And I've never done, I never did that before. And so it was a very interesting, the best thing that's ever happened to me was they let me fail. Yeah. Like they gave me the grace to fail. And I'm forever in their gratitude. Yeah, and I mean it's a risk on every. Oh my gosh! To be able to convince two guys to come work alongside of you when it's. I mean, Dodge left a full-time job. Yeah, literally a full-time job. He put his 2 weeks in. January 1 was his first day, and Ethan still was working a marketing job until probably 3 months. It was kind of March, April, and when he totally flipped over. Yeah. So, Now I'm definitely more of a support system for them.
Are there any, not to cut you off on that,
Nope.
but during that process, were there any books that you read? Or was any podcasts that you like? What was the motivation for tweaking and fixing that if you were recognizing the failure?
I think the hardest part is I am somewhat dyslexic. I'm minorly dyslexic.
Sure.
So and I didn't know that until my senior year of high school. So fun fact, my senior year of high school, 3 days a week, I went after school reading.
Yeah.
And my first lesson was how to phonetically read the word cat.
Okay.
It was really humbling.
Yeah.
But so I don't read. I try to get through a book a year, and that hasn't happened. I'm 6 months in, and I'm maybe I'm a chapter and a half into a book this year, and it's brutal.
Sure.
But it is what it is. So I think the biggest thing for me was that in that time, I was still doing the work. I was still taking the photos. You look back at our track record, and I was, still to this day, I'm really the only full-time photographer on the team. So, the first year in 2017, I did 240 photo projects. Even last year, I did 220. But this year, I've six months in, and I'm probably at, we've probably done 25 photo projects.
Okay.
And I hired photographers for 5 of them.
Okay.
So I've only picked up a camera, call it 20 times for 20 projects.
Gotcha.
And so it is drastically shifted this year in 2019.
So with that, it's just been lessons that you've learned, that you've been self-aware enough to change or adapt.
Yeah, I just
listen to feedback.
Listen to feedback is huge. I mean, I'm a big believer in failure, and I'm also a big believer in being your DNA. It's, I believe that in every person, you're like me, Duncan Littlefield, sitting here at age 30. I am built the way I'm built. I am made the way I am, but my experiences from 30 years have crafted the machine in here. So it's if you say something to me, it's almost like a pinball machine where it goes into my system and it rings this bell and hits this lever and all of a sudden comes out as a reaction. But if you can't be aware of how your machine works, then every reaction or every feeling is not a strong play to then have a stance on.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge believer in just being your DNA. And I knew my DNA was I was the workhorse, and I will always be the workhorse for my team. It's if they need me at 2 a.m., they pick up the phone and they call me and they get me. So it's not necessarily me just picking up a camera anymore, or me running a Facebook ad or whatever it is. It is me going, I am here for you guys 24/7. And if I need to pick up a camera, you just need to let me know.
Yeah.
But if you don't need me to pick up a camera and you guys have it, then I'm fully you guys go.
Yeah.
You guys do your thing. We trust you as a team. Every member of this team trusts every person. So right now we have 4 full-time videographers on the team. And if 2 of them are not on a shoot, well, then that's trust. Yeah. Even if one of them's editing it.
Yeah.
And so I'm the same way, where it's you guys go do the thing. Go do your thing. You guys are your DNA is meant to create content with creating connection points and creating trust for companies.
Yeah.
Have fun. Go do that.
What is one thing that building a team, because you just not said you've got how many people total on your team?
We have 9.
9.
We have 9. We have 8 full-time employees and 1 part-time.
So you ramped up very quickly over a 18-month period. Mm-hmm. What is one thing that you didn't expect during that process?
Where we are right now.
Just the rapid growth.
I saw the long-term play.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how I wanted to scale it. I knew, we want to be in another city within the next 2 years. We want to have a team, and it's small pockets of teams where it's headquartered in Charlotte, but say we have a team in Chicago and it's a 3-person team. It's a small office, but they can handle day-to-day stuff there, but we can fly up if we need the bigger support.
Sure.
And I see that. The difference is that for the fact that we have a full-time staff of 9 people is mind-blowing to me in 18 months. And we learned a lot along the way. We learned that we don't hire on talent anymore. We hire on core values.
Yep.
We hire for the fact of do we see these 4 core values that we all live, it's part of our DNA.
Sure.
One of them is be your DNA. That's one of our core values. And if you're not self-aware enough of yourself yet, it's going to be very difficult. And if you don't show up for each other, you're not going to do well. You're not going to do well for us.
Yeah.
Because I believe in sweat equity.
Yeah.
I believe putting the extra work in to go where you want to go.
So the core values, because that's a big hot topic for us here as well right now. Where did you get that idea? Where did that concept come from?
So it's been something that has been in my head for a long time. And again, like back to like what like even what our logo says. Like the logo like is on the top of it says create, connect, inspire. But that was a motto of mine for a long time.
Yep.
It was to create, to connect, and to inspire. Like that's what I woke up every day with motivation to do.
Sure.
If I was able to create something that connected to somebody, that inspired somebody, I won. And it wasn't like, all right, winning trophy, but that is just called like, for me, like that was the work. That was the effort I wanted to put in.
Mm.
And so from that, it was, I met a great gentleman, a great friend of mine by the name of Dave Newell.
Okay.
And he's my coach. Like he is a great friend of mine now, but he was the one that said like, hey, let's come in and let's talk about this. And let's talk about what this company does, what the goals are outside of just like arguably Duncan barking.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was I'd never thought that was the case.
Yeah.
But to hear other people go, Dunk, this is what I believe in.
Yeah.
This is what I see it. It was eye opening because it was aligned almost 80%. And we sat around the room with 7 of us and it was like, man, like this makes sense. Like this works.
Sure.
And then it only escalated and now it got so much stronger because of it.
How early on in the company did you apply the core values and start to transition in that mindset?
7 months. 7 months in, we started the conversation and we solidified them. It was probably like July of last year. August of last year, we solidified them.
Once you shifted to that, how quickly did you see from the growth pattern from where you were to now?
Yeah, I mean, like double. Like it was an immediate like double. I mean, we found that there was 2 members of our team that didn't fit very well.
Yeah.
And you know, it wasn't just like, hey, you don't have these values, like see you later. It was just like they fizzled out very quickly, and we saw signs.
They recognized it.
They recognized it, and it wasn't the best long-term fit.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm proud of them for seeing it. I'm honored that they see it, and I'm honored that they trusted me enough to tell me.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of business owners and leaders all across the country and in a lot of different industries, and the ones that have one good training and like kind of a set procedural way to do things, and the ones that have good established core values are the ones that grow at a rapid pace and are the ones that have a more functional team and organization. And it's very interesting, like just to be able to bring those things together and see that and identify it, and then you see the results of it in the long term is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's one of the things that everyone like kind of always, they come into the office and they're like, wait, like you have a wellness board, you have a wellness program.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we've had a wellness program for a year. And it's a bunch of different things. It's, you know, I would say we don't utilize it enough, and I'll be transparent, is we don't do enough with it.
Yeah.
And that's my focus for this year, is to do more with it. But we established a wellness program 6 months into the company.
Gotcha.
And that stuff that it's just like, you know what, this is the cool stuff. This is the fun stuff that you can sit back and go, I'm investing into myself.
Yeah.
I get to be around people that I love. And you know what? This is the real deal. Like I want people for the long term. Every person I bring on and talk to, and we talk about hiring, it's going like my commitment. If I offer you a contract, it's a 40-year deal. Like I am doing this. I am Littlefield Company for 40 years.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going anywhere. It could look a lot of different things, but I'm not going anywhere for 40 years. I'm going to do this until I'm 70. And I'm really pumped at like 68. I'm going to still be like going this hard at it.
Yeah.
And whatever it looks like, it could be, I mean, who knows what it's going to be by then?
Sure. Yeah.
But that's what like I'm really excited about. And every person has that same mentality, same mindset of going like, you know what? I know Duncan's investing into me, not my talent or not this for what I do well. It's like the long term.
Gotcha. It is very interesting because you're looking at it from and what you just said. You have ideas, you have goals and kind of dreams of where you want it to go, but it's going to morph so much because when you started the business, did you know that you were going to be at 9 employees, 19 members this quickly? No.
Gosh, no.
Something happens. You know, there's some things that you can't predict. There's some hopes and wishes, but some things you can't predict. Question on that. From a procedural standpoint, from a process standpoint, one of the things I noticed on your website, which I love, is the creative process. You have a 7-step process on there. This is how we do things.
Yeah.
How much of other things in your business are that process driven that you can have something that you can point back to? Is that something that you've identified early on as something you need, or are you still working those out?
I'm a process guy. Like it's just, if you look back at my playing career, it was like, all right, here's my week. Like, I know I need to accomplish these things. And, Roger and I used to make plans on plans on plans of going like, all right, in this stretch, when I'm playing 4 tournaments in 5 weeks, I don't need to be beating myself up. But now when I have like 3 weeks off, all right, this is where we can make a change.
Gotcha.
It's same thing here, same thing in business. It's going, yes, like this is the process. These are the steps. I'm a long-term driven guy. I don't expect to win tomorrow. I don't expect to win in 5 years. I'm going to win. The company is going to thrive in 30.
Yeah.
And we are investing everything we have into it. If somebody sticks with me for 40 years, it is going to be one heck of a ride.
Yeah.
And I will be honored at it. But that means I did my job right.
Sure.
I did my job right to say, I committed to you, you committed to me, and like we had an amazing life.
Yeah.
And I'm ecstatic about that. But I would say we are process driven, yes. We're still defining our process. I mean, we're a year and a half in. Our process is still evolving as team members come in, as more ideas come in, as it grows. I mean, our process is so different than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest part about growth. That's the greatest part about failure. Like we fail, we learn, we adapt, and we evolve. We're better for it.
Well, one of the projects that you have listed on your website is Tuckfest, and just some of the stats on it. And this is the reason that I asked the process question, because looking at these stats, you have to have some level of process or it's chaos, right? 1,234 edited photos, 8 creators, 4 next day video recaps. So you were doing a 1-day turn or several hour turn on a video production, and over 200,000 steps as a team.
I will say 200,000 steps as a team was definitely an estimation. Like 100%. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that whatsoever. It was a hot weekend, yes, but like we moved a ton. I mean, there was boat rides and gator rides, but bike rides, and it was but yes, everything else. I mean, we turned 4 videos around the next day by posting at 8 a.m. So we shot on Thursday for a Friday morning 8 a.m. post. And that was a full-blown video. It was not half done or not colored or not produced. Like it was fully produced.
How much of that is pre-production? Is that part of your process?
Yeah, so we actually, that weekend, we learned a lot about that weekend from doing the Charlotte Marathon last November. And so Tuckfest was extraordinarily interesting because Charlotte Marathon, there's one race course. There's, where people are going to be and at pretty much what times.
Gotcha.
Tuckfest, there's 34 events going on in one day. On a Saturday, there's 34 things going on, if not more than that.
Yeah.
And it's now, how do you sit back and go, hey, we have 3 full-time videographers and 2 full-time photographers with a support and me pretty much calling shots and a photographer if I need to be.
Yeah.
So we set up headquarters or base camp, and it was just Duncan calling out shots, and we had a full-time editor in the editing bay.
Gotcha.
Pretty much from noon till 10 p.m. That was his job, just to sort footage. And then by the time we all finished and the concert was over at 9, 10, 11, we were full-blown working on the edit. And we'd wrap it up around 2, 3 a.m. And then the next morning I'd wake up at 7, or I'd get to headquarters at 7, get a little bit of feedback from Whitewater Center, and export by 8 o'clock.
Just do it again.
Do it all over again.
So that is the coolest part about all that. And I know a lot of what you just talked about was very heavily production. So kind of taking it more of a generic approach for our audience, so those that are listening and watching. What you just said was you learned from a previous experience, a process that you had put in place and tested at one event, the marathon, and then evaluated, reassessed, fixed, and tweaked and applied it. And I would venture to say that you learned a lot from that experience. You've tweaked and you'll be prepped for the next big event.
Oh, I'm telling you what, like I wouldn't have had Tuckfest this year any other way. Like, it was a long weekend. I mean, I think we calculated that I slept 10 hours in 4 days. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. Like, I loved it. I loved the alarm going off at 6:45 and getting a text message from Cooper being like, change these 2 things and it's great.
Yeah.
Like, I loved that. And I loved being able to see everybody really dive into a process and going, you know what? We are creating content not just for Tuckfest, but we're going to be able to then cut a story about, whitewater sports or, water sports or rock climbing in September.
Yeah.
And so Tuckfest we structured where it's not just Tuckfest. It was Tuckfest plus 30 other videos.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest part about it, because I wouldn't have changed a thing. And it was I was drained.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I wouldn't have changed a thing. Next year, we're going to be like rock solid.
When you work with a team like that, though, having a process in place and everybody knowing what their role is going to be is vital. And again, that's something you can apply to any application, any business. A couple of very poignant questions that I wanted to ask you based off of the story concept of what you do from telling stories with content. And I want to be mindful of our time, but everything we've been talking about so far has been very good. I just want to capture a few more moments of the story concept. How important, because there's so much noise out there right now.
Story's everything.
Having a story to communicate is vitally important. How do you pull out that important story? How do you understand and identify what is that story that we need to tell?
You're a coach. So at no point as a company we go, this is what you need to do. Like we don't do it. We don't believe in it. For the fact of pick on Loc-Doc, for example. If you guys came in and said, guys, we'd love for you to make us a video. Mm-hmm. Well, from there, I have to listen to you more than you have to listen to me, because you have to tell me what's important to you.
Yeah.
You know your audience, you know your market, you know what you're trying to, you know what your consumer wants more than I do. I'm not a lock expert. I'm not. So I'm going to come in, we're going to do a full branding session. We're going to hear what you've done before. We want to see what you like. We want to see what you don't like. And also we want to hear the stories of why it's created, how it was created, and what your goals are. Where are you going in 5 years? We have to make people remember what they want, what they need to remember. If you guys' goal is to be the premier expert locksmith in all of the United States in 10 years, well, you better believe every story we tell, there's going to have a theme to you guys are going to scale. And if people can connect with that, then people are going to use you.
Yeah.
People are going to call your services because they want to see you succeed. So for the story, everyone says content is king. Content is king. No, story is everything.
Yeah.
Story is it. I can shoot a story on my iPhone or a story on, the best camera out there in the world, $100,000 rig, and if the story's still there, the story will win, because the goal for us is to create companies' trust. And if we create a company trust, then you can have an ask. But how do you create trust? It's stories that create connection, that create trust. So if we met at a dinner party, for example, mm-hmm. and I came up to you and I'm like, hey man, I'm Dr. Littlefield and I could perform knee surgery on you tomorrow. The probability is you going, good luck. Yeah. You won't touch me with a butter knife, right? But if now a friend of yours comes over and goes, hey, I want to introduce you to Duncan. Hey, remember my kid's knee surgery? Brad's knee surgery, little Johnny's knee surgery. Duncan did that. Hey man, I'm Duncan. If you ever need anything, just give me a call.
Yeah.
Well, you've now created an ally. You created a trusty resource that's told you a story, that's created a connection now with me.
Sure.
Now you can trust me. It's why Yelp is successful.
Yeah.
So for the fact of if I can sit back and create a company trust for their consumer, they can ask anything of it. They can ask to buy, they can ask to show up, they can ask to donate. It doesn't matter. Yeah. They're going to have that connection where they're in.
Awesome. That is really, really good information to kind of follow, because it's something that a lot of us are in a small business world are trying to figure out how to leverage all of this marketing, because there's so much information coming at you so fast, trying to figure out what do I need to do next. And there's so many varying opinions, contradictory opinions. It's trying to figure out how do you apply it and go from there. So
totally.
Understanding the story that you're trying to communicate, getting with somebody, a coach that can help you with that, because I think that's really what you just said was very, very valuable, where a lot of people sit around and expect somebody else to tell them what their story should be, or maybe a content creator is waiting on somebody to tell them what their story needs to be. It requires kind of that push and give.
It's a partnership.
Yeah.
If I came in here and was like, guys, you need to do this, you should laugh me out the room.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know a darn thing about locks. I don't know what your consumer needs to see.
Sure.
I just if I come in and go, you should change your logo and this and that, why?
Yeah.
I need to know the information. I want to know the details of why the logo is the way it is. I want to know why green.
Yeah.
I want to know what gets you excited, because if something gets you excited, then people are going to show up for that. People are going to connect to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's whenever we go into a conversation, it's what's your final goal? We always start with that question. What's the goal?
Yeah.
If it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now. But we're always going to relate everything back to that filter system of, does this meet their brand standards? Plus, is it based on their final goal?
Yeah.
And if it is, then we have a winning recipe.
That's awesome. Well, Duncan, I appreciate your time today. You've been given a lot of valuable information, some good takeaways about process and understanding how to get your story down. So I really appreciate that. For people that are watching or listening, want to get more information about your company, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, online, littlefield.co, or check us out on social media. We're at the Littlefield Co.
Cool. I really appreciate what you're doing. Really excited to watch it. As I mentioned whenever I reached out to you on Instagram, it's been really cool. I didn't realize that it had only been 18 months, but I'd been seeing the information. And you guys you're still housed in one of the Hygge locations?
Yeah, we're at Camp North End. We've been there since January of last year, and I've been a Hygge member for almost 3 years now.
Yeah. It's Garrett Titchie was a guest on our podcast several months ago, and he's an interesting guy, but the amount of influence that he and the Hygge community has brought to the Charlotte market and beyond is crazy.
I would not be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for Hygge.
Yeah.
There's a couple things in my life that have drastically shifted the way I've viewed connection and marketing, and Hygge is one of them.
Wow.
No question about it. Garrett's a close friend of mine. I'm very honored to call him a close friend. And I wouldn't be here without him or Hygge.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, cool. I appreciate your time. Next week, we've got another exciting episode. Be here with us on Tuesday at 9 a.m. for another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast. We'll see you then. To learn more about the topics discussed today and to connect with us online to hear all of the episodes available, visit Loc-Doc.net/podcast.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
The Coffee Break Podcast is brought to you by Loc-Doc Security. We'd love to connect with you online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Just search LOCDOCINC.